And we're back. Boom, 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 boom. This episode has nothing to do with my beatboxing, but it has everything to do with this big question I have, which is, as I'm watching this advancement, this massively fast advancement of technology, so you've got virtual reality, like immersive virtual reality, augmented reality, where we're throwing glasses on and getting digital displays in front of our eyes. And then most recently, the biggest changes that has happened, AI, artificial intelligence. And so as I'm watching these things kind of meld together and become incredibly more advanced and start to replace certain aspects of humans, I ask myself this question: what the is reality? How do we interpret reality? And how does that impact us as creatives? In our businesses, in our personal lives, our family lives, in our community? I don't know the answer to this question, but I'm going to explore it in today's episode. Join me. Why I wanted to talk about this was this last Friday. I was having dinner with some friends, and I thought this was really good dinner music, by the way. Bo, bo, bo. Two people met for dinner. And then there were two others. And they continued to have a conversation that night over food and drinks. It was memorable. All kidding aside, I was having dinner with four amazing humans. And over this dinner, one of the women in the group, she said, "Hey, has anyone seen the pictures of Donald Trump getting arrested?" And we all looked at each other and I'm like, "What are you talking about? He got arrested? What?" And then she said, "Well, they're fake images, they're fake pictures, but they went viral on the internet for a little bit because they look so real." And so I'm flabbergasted. I'm gonna have to use that word in a long time. But yeah, I'm trying to figure this out. Like, wait, what? So she shows me her phone and we start to look at it. And sure enough, there are these pictures that were fake, that were made using AI image generation software, an AI algorithm called Midjourney. And there's a picture of Donald Trump running from the police. There's a picture of him being arrested and he's fighting with the police. There's another picture of him in this almost like cinematic shot where he's looked like he's in a superhero pose, kneeling on the ground, and this light is like this angelic light is shining upon him. By the way, this episode has nothing to do with politics, so do not be scared away. But it was us looking at these images that look so real. At like first glance, if you're just scrolling through your feed, if that had a headline, Donald Trump arrested for XYZ, you were definitely, number one, clicked into it, or at the very least, you would have scrolled away with that information that he had been arrested, and you would have shared that with someone. So as I headed home that night, and I'm just thinking about all these advances that I've been researching in the AI space, I kept asking myself, like, what is reality? I started to question reality. And so I wanted to explore that with you in today's episode, this like, what is reality? And why I think it's important to, number one, be aware of the shift that's happening in our culture, but also at least be informed so that you can start to make better decisions for yourself and for your business and for your family, things like that. So for me, the way my brain works is the best way to unpack this is to think about, number one, if we just simplify the overall equation, this like, what is reality? We simplify it and we start to think, well, what defines our reality? And it's really simple. It's our brain. And I did a lot of research on this, but our brain is a very simple mechanism. In fact, there's a gentleman here. Let me pull up his name's David Eagleman. David Eagleman. He's a brain scientist, and years ago, he had this TED Talk. It's called Can We Create New Senses for Humans? And he talks about how the brain processes inputs or stimuli, and then from that finds patterns, assigns meaning to them. And of course, we know how the brain then releases hormones. It triggers muscle. It does things based on the inputs, and that's how we work. And so he's got a fascinating company that is exploring how can we basically add in additional senses for the human to then experience. And one of the contraptions that they've come up with is for folks that are deaf or hard of hearing. And this device is actually, I think it's a bracelet, and it vibrates, and it inputs a certain type of frequency and vibration onto someone's skin and allows their brain to interpret that as a type of sound. So it's pretty fascinating stuff. But going back to the brain. So the brain, and I'll say this, right? It's good at extracting information. This is from his video. It's good at extracting information from streams of data inputs. And then from that, extracting patterns, assigning meaning, but your brain doesn't know and it doesn't care where it gets the information from. So let's go a little bit deeper. This is the thing that I'm really intrigued by. That we have 5 core senses right now that are inputs for our brain, right? We've got sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. Yeah, I had to look at my notes. It's been a while since I've gone through grade school senses, but those are our 5 senses. So if those are the input channels for our brain, again, we're focusing on what creates reality. If those are the input channels for our brain, let's explore those a little bit, and specifically how AI, the advancements in AI, are starting to make kind of inroads in each of those. Because just to kind of finish off this thought, what I mean by reality is, if you're that kind of person, or at least you know the type of person that you might tell them something, but until they can see it, feel it, hear it, smell it, taste it, it's not real. You know what I'm saying? What's that common saying, right? I mean, it's like I forget the saying. There's some saying my friends have, but the whole point is, if you can't see it, it's not real. And that's what we've come to believe. And now we're in this place where this is starting to shift a little bit. So if we look at sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell as those 5, what I did is I went online, I did some research, and I'm like, okay, what are the AI advancements in each one of those sensual areas? Sense areas. So we look at sight. There's a big advancement right now. One is called ChatGPT. If you're not familiar with this is an AI algorithm, and per the company that's created it, which is OpenAI, it can generate written content such as news articles, product descriptions, social media posts based on input prompts or trained on large data sets of text. That last one is really interesting. Most of my friends that are familiar with ChatGPT, they use it to basically simplify or condense down text. Or they're familiar with people using it to create blog post articles. But it's far more robust and it's far more intelligent. In fact, it's at this point of this recording, I believe it's even more intelligent than the average human. And it is learning massively every single day. Millions upon millions of users are inputting information that is helping train this algorithm to learn and be smarter, which is a whole nother discussion around the ethics of this. But this is fact. This is today. So we're still in this area of sight for our senses, and these are some of the advancements in AI. You can use ChatGPT. I used it last night with my daughter, who's studying cells in science class. And we went to ChatGPT, and I said, as an 8th grader living in Tennessee, what are the top things I should know about cells for an upcoming science test? It spit out 10 categories. I said, can you break that into subcategories? It broke it out into subcategories. And then my daughter said, well, I need flashcards to learn. And I said, great. Turn it into flashcards, please. So within 2 minutes, We had all of this content and all this information then turned into flashcards. This is transformative stuff, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. So that's one text. Here's another one on site around photos. So as I mentioned the story to begin this episode, there's a app called, or an image algorithm called Midjourney. And again, using text prompts, you can create images. Another one by the same company that does ChatGPT, the one I just talked about for text, it's called DALL-E, D-A-L-L-E, or -E, also creates images based on written text. And the things that I have seen, number one, are incredibly photorealistic, such as the Trump pictures. They look pretty dang real, and we're in the beginning phases of this. I've seen portraits of people in New York that I couldn't tell were fake because of the lighting. It looks so real. It's phenomenal. They're creating not just photos, but it could be paintings, it could be art, abstract, you name it. The possibilities are endless. And then one last thing when it comes to the sense of sight, video. Now I know that touches a lot of different senses, but if we keep it general with sight, there are AI algorithms where you can literally create videos based on prompts or augment existing videos based on prompts and intelligence. And we'll talk a little bit about this a little bit later in the episode, where you start to see these videos that are called deep fakes. So you can already start to see, we're just talking about one of the 5 senses and how AI advancements are starting to kind of blend or muddy the waters between reality that as we used to know it versus this next phase of reality. Let's keep going. Sound. Second sense, sound. I've got to hear it to believe it. Well, there's a couple that are pretty incredible. Number one, music. There's an AI algorithm where you could simply go in and with a click of your mouse create custom cinematic pop, jazz music. You choose the genre, you choose your specifics of that, and it will create it for you. And it sounds great. And it'll kick it out with the copyright, and you can use it across any channel that you need. That's pretty transformative. Here's another one. There's voice AI algorithms where you can teach the algorithm what someone's voice sounds like. For instance, someone has trained it on Steve Jobs' voice, or Joe Rogan's voice, or Joe Biden's voice. Right, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. So these are some of the AI advancements happening in sound. Let's keep going. Touch. Have you heard of haptic feedback suits? You've probably seen them in some of the shows and movies that are coming out recently. There's one called Upload on Amazon, and it's all about basically when someone dies, if they pay enough, their brain is kept alive, and they live in a virtual reality space, and they're able to continue to interact with their previous family and friends in their previous life through VR. And they use haptic suits to interact with each other, to touch each other. Anyways, these exist. There's a suit called Tesla's suit, where it applies pressure, heat, and vibration to bring to life the feeling of being in a game or training or any situation that you're in with a VR experience. There's gloves. So these are some of the changes in touch. Taste. Let's go with taste. There's a company called Gastrograph, and they leverage AI to tell a food manufacturer whether the food they just created, how it's going to be accepted in the marketplace. So you can kind of get my point here, right? If our brain doesn't care where it gets information from, it just cares that it takes the information in and finds a pattern in it and then makes sense of it. And the ways that it takes information is through our 5 senses. And now, in these 5 senses, AI specifically is augmenting a lot of this and tweaking reality versus non-reality. Right? So why does this matter? Well, I'm gonna scroll down here. I think it's a big deal. And here's why. I talked about deep fakes. let's talk about this. Okay, there's a video that's been online where Joe Biden is talking. I forget the specific topic, and I don't think it matters because this isn't a podcast episode about kind of the right or wrong of situations. Needless to say, there is a video that has been analyzed by other people of the President of the United States talking about a specific topic, and a handful or large group of people not believing that was actually the president speaking. Their belief was that there was a physical body actor, and then AI video software was able to place Biden's face on top of this actor and manipulate the voice to sound like Joe Biden. So it's a deep fake, right? It's not actually the president speaking. Whether that is true or not, the issue is we start to lose trust in what is reality versus not. We start to question what we trust. And that was my realization coming home Friday night. I was like, what the fuck is reality? What is real? How do I know what is real? There's some other deepfake videos that I was reading about. One of Ukraine's president and the other of Russia's president, Putin. Both videos having both presidents articulating their surrender to the other side. Completely fake videos, but they look real. So they're blurring the lines of what is reality versus not. The last couple examples I'll share with you is going back to this kind of this chat GPT and some of the advancements in the voice AI. The gentleman, John Mayer, who he is the CEO of this company called Forever Voices. And he's leveraged, Forever Voices is this AI algorithm for voice. And what he's done is he's plugged in celebrity voices, and he took Steve Jobs, taught the AI algorithm how to talk like Steve Jobs, and then pointed that voice that now sounded like Steve Jobs to ChatGPT. And so what he would do, and this is on Twitter, you can look it up, he would go in and via Facebook Messenger, he would use that as kind of the input channel. So he would ask Steve Jobs, fake Steve Jobs, a question, which would query the brain of ChatGPT, right? Think of that as the brain, would come back, recite poems. So you have Steve Jobs reciting a poem, Steve Jobs talking about current technology, and the man's been passed away for many years. So for me, here's the question. The question is, as we continue to improve in all of these areas of AI and augmentation of these five senses, what does become reality versus not? And how do we know what is real versus not? And by the way, I have no judgment over any of this. I'm still learning. I have my thoughts. I'm a little worried about it, honestly. Which kind of brings me to this, to wrap all this up. Why do I share this with you? Number one, if you weren't aware, this stuff is happening and it is influencing your life today. The fact that we're blurring the lines between what is real versus what is not is something to be aware of. Yes, I am concerned about it. But here's the most important thing. Here's my big message. Because I know right now what you can do in your life. If you're asking yourself, what do I do? Just be more human. Because I think the more we as a society are leaning into technology to do things that we might normally do as a human. Some of these mundane tasks of writing a 1,000-page blog article or an essay paper can now be done pretty dang well, if not better, through AI algorithms. That's today. Next year is going to be vastly even more improved. My point is, if we use technology and we lean into it to replace some of the aspects of what humans can do, then there is the potential that we start to devalue the human themselves. And I fully mean this. So, these tools can be used, but it doesn't replace the need for deep human interaction. How do you communicate with your neighbor during confrontation? Do you do it via text or do you do it over the phone? How can you critically think through a problem with another human? How can you be present for someone in their time of need? when it comes to your business. I mean, you see it in what I'm doing. I'm focusing on deep personal connection, whether that's a video like this where I'm talking directly to you, or through the creation of the videos that I do with my clients where it's just dripping with humanity. To me, that's the opportunity. It's like you can lean into this deeper human experience, being fully aware that there's this other reality that's being created through AI and through technology. And the last thing I'll say is this. I think it's an opportunity to slow the fuck down. I really mean that. Slow down. I'll go back to the example that I started this podcast episode with. This person telling me, hey, have you seen these fake Trump pictures? What I needed to do in that moment, and what I did that night, is I went and I researched online what it was all about. I had to slow down. Instead of just taking that and running with that information, I went and researched it. I made sure that the articles I was reading were not biased. I made sure that what I was reading was actually coming from multiple sources in the same way. Does that make sense? Like, it's just a simple example of just slowing down. I don't have all the answers, right? But for me, this is just kind of an exploration into this topic of what is reality. I'm going to be filming a documentary and really exploring this in more detail because I do think it's a fascinating topic. This, like, if the brain is processing information through these main input channels, these 5 senses, and we start to just augment those 5 senses in different ways, then we literally can create alternate realities. Is that good? Is that good or bad? The brain doesn't know the difference. I don't know. So follow me. I'll be exploring that in future episodes and definitely through my YouTube channel. But with that, I leave you. Have an amazing day, an amazing morning, night, whenever you listen to this episode. Appreciate you for listening, and have a good one. Talk soon.